Hey folks, Nick Tuckert here with the Historical Fencing Guild. Tonight, before we get into some things, I have some bills to pay. The Historical Fencing Guild is brought to you, at least the live streams, by our good friends over at the Independent Creator Directory. That's indiecd.org, your one-stop shop for the best and the brightest authors, artists, musicians, and other creatives. We're also made possible by sales of my books, the Simple Sword, the Fighting Axe, and the Simple Spear, and my patrons, Off in the Woods, Frog G, Ronald's Rain, Bladed Thesis, Brian K. Morris, Cindy Kep, and Steve Augusto, who, without your influence, I couldn't be able to afford and do things. Pardon me if I am slightly disheveled, and I know I'm a moment or two late. We literally just about a half hour ago got in and got all the groceries put away. So I've been running back and forth in 80-degree temperature, hauling groceries. But today we've got a good bit to talk about, and I'd rather not diddle-dally too much. If you want to help, consider joining the Patreon. As little as $1 a month will help me keep the lights on and afford to buy trainers that I will use to train basically people who couldn't afford training any other way. Also, if you go to Purple Heart Armory, please use this link. It's my affiliate link. It costs you nothing. I get a small percentage of any of the purchases you make. I also get a better, it builds my rapport with the good folks over at Purple Heart Armory, allowing me to make, gear requests. So it's a wonderful, wonderful place. And we're going to talk about some of the reviews, some of the products, and why eventually I'm going to have to throw some larger money at PHA. And we might as well get right into that. As anybody who's been following me knows, I do nightly drills. And as my health has improved and gotten better, I have been expanding them slowly and very carefully building up what I'm doing. So I'm currently using the polypropylene, they were called Wolf Sabers, that I acquired on Amazon because they're match set and they're just the right weight to not overtax my wrists when things are bad. But I go through a series of drills that equate to a couple hundred shots a night. Now I have been expanding back into things I used to do, including two-handed training, which is where we can get into an interesting point. This is the Youth Greatsword Trainer. And if you're planning to do two-handed sword fighting and you want something light that you can practice in inside inside the house and not necessarily destroy your ceilings or ceiling fans or whatever, this is a good potential item. It isn't weighted like their indoor trainers. They do sell indoor trainers, but I found a little bit of a hiccup with this particular trainer and the style of the basic trainer that I want to mention. Because I say I will do reviews, but it takes me a long time. And part of the reason it takes me a long time is I don't want to do this feels great in my hand. It does this. Here's the point of balance. Go. I want to use it, get to know it fairly intimately, and really find the ins and outs of any trainer that I'm going to talk about. Now, this is a wonderful, wonderful trainer. I love it for what it is, but there is a slight concern. And the concern comes if you are allowing force to go opposite what it's designed. What do I mean by that? Because I really want to get this out. These swords are advertised as having no flex, and you can't really flex it much. So it wouldn't be safe for a rapier style thrusts, things like that, even without extremely good calibration. But I use this as a form trainer for two-handed styles. It's like if I can work through, I can smack my own setup. It works. But what I have found is if my grip pivots, it will start to flex in the middle here. Now, I am debating, and it's a dangerous thing to debate, so I'm pondering it. I'm not doing it yet. But cutting the cord removing the wrap and actually adding scales like I would with a knife, riveting them on probably through the existing holes and one more, and pinning it. So probably some stout hardwood, uh, sandwich knife style, because obviously I'm not going to have the opportunity to do a Pinon, full tang thing. But that would add a little bit of stiffness, either either wood or possibly even aluminum, if I can get a bit of aluminum bar stock the right width. So you'll feel free to wade into that. That will add considerable girth to the grip, which is not something I terribly want to do, because part of the appeal is this fits very comfortably in my hands, and I don't want to sacrifice that. But I am finding that this flex. Okay, I want you to see that the top. You see how much flex there is. That's a little concerning. So I'm going to have to spar with this more and see how it handles under heat, because many of these trainers get a little weird under 80 plus degrees. So I want to see how that works. So practices are coming in the future. Beyond that, though, I will be doing a whole review of this weapon, and basically I'm going to go through all my swords. That is part of it. Now, I do have some other things I want to get into. I just wanted to cover that because I found it interesting. I may even write Christian about it. I'm not sure. But, if I'm really going hardcore with it, the Penty Messer is very close to the same proportions. It's a little bit heavier, but it's a lot stouter. And I may have to acquire that, but that's $100+. So that requires thought. Still, especially for children, younger people, and smaller people, this is a great weapon. Please don't think I'm bashing it. I'm just working on ways to improve and address problems that I feel it may be encountering. So what I'm going to do, having mentioned that, is I'm going to hop quickly through the chat. And then we're that way. I like to check if people have any questions before I get on to my next chunk of tirade. And then we will discuss whatever's on your mind. And if not, I will discuss things that are on my mind, because I've got some other things to talk about. Let me just get my hair back up so that it is out of my way and off my neck. It's a little warm. And let's look at the chat. Oh my goodness. And first through the door is Trelana. Good evening, all. Good evening, Trey. I hope you're enjoying this broadcast. I know you're probably over in a certain verdant colored room, but I appreciate you for being here. And guys, please be sure to drop your likes before you mill about. And Joe joins us. Hello, Joe Bachman. He teleports in, grabs the water, tips his hat to the host, and scurries away through the portal. He does that. They have Friday night plans now. And joined by Thesis. Hello, Bladed Thesis. Glad to see you. Love your new picture. That picture looks really good. Howdy, Bladed. Hey, Thesis. And we're joined by Foxy. Hello, Foxy. We got more greetings. And Goff worked just in time. I'm glad to hear it. And me too. Hello, Kitty. And Thesis says, I could still work with my Green Destiny trainer until I get a chance to get the Han Jin trainer, which makes sense. And basically adding handle scales for extra weight. No, I mean, and hold on. Oh, excellent. Glad to hear that. Trey's a genius. She can multitask far better than I can. I'm not worried about adding extra weight, although adding extra weight will be very useful. And hello, Alec. The weight isn't the issue. The rigidity of the hilt is. So what I want to do is, because as you move and fight, and as I'm drilling, I'm finding a very uncomfortable for me flex in the hilt area of the weapon. So bonehead sword parts, just because I haven't covered it in a while. We have the blade. Got the tip of the blade. Split the blade in half. You have the forte, or fort, depending who you're talking to, the strong, and the foible, the weak. If you are a little more advanced and you like having it broken into thirds, you get the meso forte. So you get strong, middle strong, weak. This is in terms of leverage. You defend with the strong, you attack with the weak. Okay? Because you don't need as much leverage to do harm for being able to redirect. It's a very simple thing. This would be considered a full tang, even though it's plastic, because the material of the metal goes straight through the guard, which has just a little bit of wobble, no biggie, and is actually held in place by two plastic shoulders, so the blade comes out and widens a little bit, and this reinforced, essentially, rubber band. It's a very brilliant way of doing things, but goes all the way through. The part you hold is the hilt. The bottom is the pommel. This piece is a crossguard. Very simple crossguard, but not inelegant. It works. This would be pretty much a hand and a half sword in hilt. I want to say this is it's 36 inches long total, and I think this is a 10-inch hilt. So I think this is a 20-inch blade. 26-inch blade. It's very, very comfortable length to wield. It is a comfortable length to carry. I am very, very pleased with this trainer. Do not think I am in any way, shape, or form denigrating it. It does show why the longer hilted trainers may not be as effective and natural feeling as the shorter, more traditional trainers, because there is a bit of pivot there. So yes, and the point of balance is really close. It's about a hand out, if I recall. Hand without? Yeah. Where are we going? There we go. So I'd say about 4.5, 5 inches out. This makes this a very agile weapon, even in one hand. For anime fans, this is very close to the design of that odd generic anime fantasy sword that you see so often. The scale works very well for me as a sword. I like that 26-inch blade. Because it's about 4 inches shorter than my 30. So it fits. It is literally the length of my arm from my outstretched finger to my shoulder ball socket. So it is very much a perfect length for me. I have short arms. The extra hilt is part of what pulls the weight back, and then I can get offhand leverage on it. It changes the style, but it does innately close the middle road. So it becomes a very fluid style. Elegant and effective. People tend to talk down. It is a little different in handling to the very similar, and a bit older 1.33 trainer. His old style of rubber band, which is actually fading. I may have to reach out and order a replacement rubber band for this. These are almost exactly the same sword, but because the hilt is shorter, you don't have the leverage in the middle. And it is also a bit, obviously the point of balance is much farther out because there's less on the end. So this is a much, much, much choppier. I can still get a hold of the disc pommel and, dual hand it. So it works. But again, it's the difference of about 4 inches. 3 to 4 inches. And this is a little bit shorter. But finding that fits. Now, I suspect a lot of the trainers of the basic line cap off at 36 inches because 3 feet is a shipping size. And it makes larger than that can become very challenging to ship. Excuse me, I have to turn the alarm and receiver off on this. So give me just a moment. Sorry about that. Okay, and I did get comments. See, I like to have them on so that I can check the messages. Exquisite. Exquisite. That is delightful. So I just got some good news about somebody making a very wise financial decision. It really does revolve and settle into picking the weapons that fit you and fit your style. Now, let's see, where were we? But yes, we covered the adding scales for extra weight. That will make it actually lighter tipped, which as a fencer will feel more natural for me. And good evening. I greeted you, but I couldn't respond. And Trey is currently double rooming, listening to you and stories in the room. Excellent. And we got greetings. And I was out with my boffer today. Exquisite. We will be doing an episode where I make a boffer in the near future to show people how it's done. I have all put aside ye old pool noodle. And this is the smaller size, which will take the 1/2-inch PVC like a champ. And we will probably make a smallish boffer so I can show it on screen, but I need to get some more PVC because, frankly, the PVC staves I have made have been so effective at what I've been using them for that I don't want to cut them down. So that means, tragically, I will have to go to Menards and get PVC. Oh, no, not PVC. Not a trip to Menards. Oh, it's so tragic. So that is coming down the pipe. I need to do a whole bunch of scripted, not live stream videos. I am also currently buried under bubble wrap that was acquired for my other channel. Well, it came with the other channels, so, some projects I'm doing there. Because people were asking me about Nerf guns and they wanted me to review them. So, oh no, not reviewing my many Nerf guns. Oh, just stop, my love. Okay. But we'll go through that. I'm glad you're out there. Hey, Alec, and I've still got my buffer too, but it's a little thick for me. So instead, I use my Green Destiny trainer. Okay, well, I floated it instead, but that works. And the Green Destiny is a great trainer. I mean, things will be better when you have one of these, which you need to acquire. Because this is perfect for your style. Very light. The grip feels very nice. I've talked about these before. It is a sad, sad day that Thesis doesn't have one. Alas, but it's true. I will also say this polypropylene katana is the best katana trainer I have found in some time. I am obscenely fond of it. And when you know what style you want to fight, excuse me, let me just put that back. Respect the weapons. Anyway, my study is a nightmare, but my weapons are carefully respected. Now, they will be more so after I'm done doing the work. There are a couple periods, and this is a good transition. So let me go through the comments. I'm going to write down what I wanted to discuss real quick so I don't lose it. And then now, okay, we're going to go through the comments and we're going to talk about a lot. So let's see. Hey, Alec. Still got my boffer too, but it's a bit thick for me, so I'll use that. Makes sense. I assume the grip. Now, one thing on the topic of buffers and PVC when you're using, making grips, you can use a heat gun and gently, carefully compress the PVC, done outdoors with extremely good ventilation. You do not want to breathe the fumes. And compress it just a bit, and it'll give you a more ovaloid hilt, which can be a bit more comfortable. But there are ways to tweak it, just like there are a couple different methods for bending PVC to make curved sword trainers. I have a lot of people who like katanas. I have a lot of people who like, they're going to refer to them as scimitars, but talwars and things. It's a great way to figure out if you like a weapon type and helps you narrow down what kind of trainers and perhaps lifesteal you want. That niching down will be very helpful for learning, and this is for anybody, what you want to do. And so we have Alex saying, I was working on some footwork too, as I'm trying to work on balance with all that as well. If you are having balance problems, which does not surprise me, given some of the things I know about your situation, balance can be learned, assuming you don't have an inner ear issue. Some of us actually have some pretty bad inner ear issues that affect our balance. Hi, my name is Nick. And body deformities. But balance and footwork go hand in hand. You always want to move and train at the speed of your slowest effort. So if you are really having trouble with footwork, you want to make sure that you aren't rushing halfway faster than your feet can keep up. There are times for that kind of thing later, but what you want to do is build consistency top to bottom. And footwork is best done using, there are a few methods I can really recommend. The circle and cross drills out of, is it Thibault? Might be Thibault, it might be Mazzarano. I've got notes. I believe they are in the Leafy Moss folder. I'll dig around. It should be available to my Patreon people too. If not, I will throw the notes up on my Patreon and then I'll send it to you, Alec. I just have to dig around a bit, make sure I have them. Simple methods for how to block out essentially a hopscotch pattern to help with your footwork. This is a very simplified, streamlined approach. It can get very complex, but so can the study of the blade. A lot of it, I find, yields diminishing results. So what I try to do is aim towards the amount of effort it takes to essentially get a B. Because if you look at the graph of how much difficulty it is to get the level of mastery, the closer you get to perfect mastery, perfect ability, the harder and harder and harder it gets. So between B and A, is one of the great gulfs that are entirely on the student. That's where you get to push. But I aim towards about a B. I want you to have 80% of functionality. And then you can work beyond that. But 80 will solve the vast majority of problems you're going to have fencing-wise. And from there, you'll be able to tweak it on your own, the remaining 20%, however much you want. And footwork, balance and footwork are very important. Good work, Alec. Indeed, footwork was the thing I had to work the least at, being a dancer. Absolutely. And remember, footwork crosses over. This means if a student is a previous martial artist, if they are in any form of regimented movement, that means marching in ROTC, that means being a marching band member, any background of dance, they are going to have better footwork than most people going in. So if I were working face-to-face with Kitty and like, okay, I'm going to teach you how to sword fight, Kitty. Let's see what you do naturally first, and we're going to tweak a style to fit you. I would not have to worry about Kitty crossing up her footwork. It just wouldn't be something I need to likely worry about. I'd pay attention to make sure she does because I know her only through the internet. I haven't seen her walk or move, so I can't 100% analyze. I believe you, but that's how my mind works. But that means we probably have to focus on blade work and tip accuracy. But if you're doing rope dart, yeah, that'll be different. So that means the concept of a thrusted attack is going to come very natural to you. Coming offline for that may be a little trickier. Defense is a whole different universe. So we'd have to tailor it to their style. Balance is hard sometimes. Yes, it is. It takes... The hardest thing about balance is keeping yourself centered. You have to be inside your body mentally to achieve balance. You can't be way out somewhere else. And a lot of us deep creative thinkers, a lot of us neurodivergents, our minds don't necessarily fit properly in our bodies. I know that's an odd thing to say. It probably sounds almost like I'm talking about, the trans kind of situation. But there is a mental physical dysmorphia, for lack of a better word, for the people who are neurodivergent. This is why very often ADHD people will bump into things, because without training, we tend not to be as physically centered and aware of where we are at a given point, especially as we're moving. It's just been proven. It's a very strange phenomenon, but it is a phenomenon that can be worked on. Very few people are actually clumsy. Being clumsy, having bad balance, can only really stem from a few things. Actual physiological and neurological issues. So these are people who have inner ear issues, people like me who have one leg shorter than the other, uneven weight distribution kind of things, damage to joints so one has more mobility than the other, things like that. A special focus on inner ear issues is a separate thing. I put that as sensory issues. So inner ear, inability to feel your own weight on your legs, vision issues where you cannot judge where your feet are visually, where your hands are visually, where objects around you are visually. That could be as simple as, oops, my glasses prescription is wrong, to, maybe you've untreated nearsightedness, or you've recently acquired an injury that has affected how your sight works. But the greatest one is your body and mind aren't doing the same thing. You are not in the moment. And the best thing for us about learning to sword fight, I have found, I mean, we're getting into the real roots of why I do what I do, is bodily control through physical acceptance and knowledge. True physical education of how your body works. It hurts if I do something this way. It's fine if I do it this way. I can only reach this far, or I can reach this far, or depending on the weather, it tightens at different points. Learning what that feels like, learning how that flows, learning where you are, strengths, weakness, balance, and reach wise is very necessary. But as you do that, you will find that you get better at other things. You get better at spatial awareness because once you know where you are, it's easier to triangulate where this is. Depth is done through triangulation. That's what part of why we have two eyes. I can tell that this is closer to my right hand. Okay, you can't see it. I have a bottle. I'm going to put it over here. Let me angle down. You'll see more of the mess, but that's fine. I can tell that this is closer to this hand than it is this hand because I can visually measure the size, and this is what your mind does. And coloring and light effects. There's a bunch to say the distance from here to here, and I look at it through this eye, and it's here to here, and I can tell it's longer. So that's how I triangulate where an object is. I know the distances and I know the angles on this end. So if I have the distance and I have this angle and I have this angle, you just chart it out and it gives you the triangulated point where something is. This is how you do it on a map. This is how your eyes work. This is how roughly your hearing triangulates things. It's very necessary. Alex says I'm opposite of a dancer. Laura and I have become very acquainted. We are going to work on that, Alec. We are going to go through suggestions on footwork exercises. We are going to go through guided footwork exercises. I'm not putting a sword in your hand. I'm not teaching you defense. I am teaching you how to move without tripping as much. We'll talk about how your foot comes down. Now, anybody who watches me knows I drag my feet slightly. I very rarely lift my feet all the way up. I've actually been yelled at by instructors. I walk exactly like my dad does. And the thing about dragging your foot slightly like that is you're less likely to come down on something uneasy. So I tend to have a very specific process. And I will show you, at least people I can show in person. I can do, if you guys are really interested, another, let's get that where you're not looking at that big old mess. Okay. Another footwork video. It's been a while since I've done one. I'll be happy to do that. We could do swordsman's hopscotch. And that might be a good source of notes for my next book, advancing on the simple sword fighting axe and the simple spear. LOL, I was like that too, but over time I got better. See? How much PVC do you need? We can always talk. Show off. LOL. He loves to do it. And then... Okay, hold on. Because the next one opens up a few things. Yes, there's always another and then. And yes, I saw the comments that were sent to me. That's part of why I did what I did. Oh, I've been compressing my handles and bending PVC for years. It's not the handle. It's the blade is too thick. Okay. If you're referring to a boffer. Okay. The it's a little harder with this style. You may need to consider advancing your style of buffer into a flexi. Oh god, I lost the word. Shoot, plastidip style weapon. What do I mean? I don't have any of my actual plastidip weapons handy because I didn't know I was going to do that. But they're made by a different process. You're going to get a cord just like you would with PVC. But instead of using PVC, you're going to use something much smaller. The fiberglass road markers, like snow markers. If you've ever seen them, they're either 3/8 or 1/4 of an inch diameter, orange fiberglass. Make wonderful cores. And then what you're going to do is you're going to figure out where your handle is, and you're going to shape it. Now, the basic way will give you a round handle, which is to take and attach, you could slide over a wooden hilt with a hole drilled in it, just like you would if you were making a normal sword. Add an adhesive, slide it on there, wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. You can also wrap cord, like paracord works really good for this. Hot glue it, wrap it over an adhesive to expand it. If you need to make it a little wider but not taller, you can run a band to broaden it out a bit, or add an extra piece of fiberglass and then wrap that on the sides. But then you take and you get closed cell foam, which looks a good deal like this. It's almost like I have some of it. This is pretty weak. You want some slightly more rigid stuff. But you sandwich. You're going to end up sandwiching the core between the layers of closed cell foam. Then but beforehand, before you do that, you need to put a stop, a piece of leather that's been flapped to distribute the force so the tip of your weapon can't just punch through too easy. There are lots of videos. You need to look into that. I'm going to hide this because it's a big comment. But you take closed cell foam, and there is an adhesive called wood weld. It works great. And what you're going to do, because these are actually, if you look really close, can I get to show? I think you can slightly see these are actually 2 sheets of closed cell foam that have been essentially wood weld or some kind of adhesive bonded together to give you this nice 5/16, not 5/16, hold on, 9/16, sorry, of inch, because it feels a little wider than 1/2 inch closed cell foam. After you have put a core, so let me see. I'm looking to see if I have anything I can use as a vague proxy to at least demonstrate the process. Here we go, mechanical pencil. This is actually very close to the proper diameter of the core. You're going to put wood weld, and you're going to merge everything. Now, you can cut it out ahead of time or cut it out together. Cutting out the pieces to give you the shape ahead of time will give you a better fit. Cutting it out together will make it more balanced. It's a little hard to explain, but you're going to take your blade pieces, and you're going to just, with it sandwiched in, and cut out the weapon. Then you're going to shape it. Using the cutting and shaping can be done either with a very sharp knife. I would recommend a box cutter knife, or something called a hot knife, which is a wire that runs out. It looks kind of like they either are flat, there are flat ones, or they look like a hacksaw. But that wire is actually heated by it being plugged into a battery, and that will literally just slice through foam like this, like butter. Okay? So, you shape it. You can file it. You can, I not file it, sand it. You can use other tools to shape it. You rotary tools. Anytime you're shaping foam, you want to wear a respirator and goggles because you do not want foam, plastic, or adhesives in the eyes or in the sinus cavities or in your lungs. It's been a while since I've done this, but we can make this go. Once it's done, there is a product called Plastidip. It's very similar to Flex Seal. It comes in spray and it comes in a paint-on liquid. I like to use lots of layers of the spray, let it set over time, and it gives a better result for me. However, some projects just demand the paint-on. It's not cheap, but it's not expensive either. It's decent stuff. I haven't bought any in a while, so we'll have to look into it. But you seal anything that could be a striking area with that, and you let it dry and cure. Sometimes they need a primer. Sometimes they don't. Once it is sealed, you can paint it with assorted substances, but understand that with Flex, the paint will probably come off. So you're better using a colored method because Plastidip comes in multiple colors to seal that. And you want a very good heavy coat, very smooth, because that's going to protect your foam, add more rigidity to the overall shape, and allow the compression to be distributed differently so it will last longer. What you'll end up with is something very much like the Nerf greatswords. Now, sourcing foam, this is a little on the porous side. This is a little weak for that kind of project. I would use tighter closed cell foam like you find in the yoga mats. Camp pad can be used. This is right around camp pad. It might be a little more wibbly than camp pad, but this was free because this was used to pack some glass shelves. And that means after they're done, I get happy little foam that I can make into armor backing or Plastidip weaponry. That will allow you to shape and narrow down quite a bit. You still want to have enough on the flat of your blade to keep it from being too squishy. Keep the core from hitting somebody hard. But it works, and it works nicely. I would use there are ways to use strapping tape to reinforce it. Before you get pretty with it, look on YouTube. There's some great videos. But I would, if you're going to keep having buffers, which you should as an instructor, it may be time to upgrade your scale a bit. Yeah, I made a couple PVC katanas a few years back for maintenance guys. They love them. I used to do basketball, and we did a lot of footwork drills. I did this as much as I could, that medical thing where I got hurt and messed up my movement more than it had been. Yep. That's why you're going to have your movement tailored. If you have to practice alone and you want to develop reasonable muscle control, I heartily recommend Tai Chi. There are videos. Set up a mirror, set up your video on like a laptop, do whatever the Sifu says, and go and then use that to match. A lot of my footwork has been heavily Tai Chi and other martial arts influenced when I am fighting. It is not the simple sword that I teach to everybody, because combined with my background and my deformities in my ankles and lower legs, I can't teach people to move exactly like I do because their joints won't. I also have an undiagnosed hypermobility, which can affect things a lot too. Jesus says, believe me, I get that. My balance is different than it was before my hip. Still trying to get used to my new normal. And you had to completely relearn balance after your reduction. And that's why I'm waiting until I can afford and I'm physically able to physically handle top surgery. I can't bind forever, so I wear tape as well, but I can't always afford that. And then I know I'll have to get physical therapy for multiple things after that. That is true. Afford after college plus stable job for 3 to 4 years. Exactly. And learning how to learn will help you come back from the inevitable injuries. It does change things. I just went smaller and it changed for me quite a bit. I can imagine. Just be careful with binding. You can really mess up your ribs doing that. Absolutely. Picking your foot up all the way is a no in Bagua circle walking. It telegraphs things too much in direction changes. But you have to be able to adjust your footwork for uneven terrain. And I'm going to stop and harp on a lot of martial arts I've had to deal with where people don't think in terms of how to move on uneven terrain. And it really throws people off to have to move and fight somewhere where they're not on perfect dojo, soleil, basketball court style level floors of similar solidity. Practicing on slightly uneven terrain and terrain that gives, terrain that doesn't, will help you so much in the long run. And Alex says, I've been binding for 4+ years, Kitty. I will admit some days I'm unhealthy because of the dysmorphia being so bad, but it's much better now. I'm more comfortable in my body, but I'm so used to binding that became another layer of skin. And you'll get that with kind of sensation with wearing braces and different joint supports over time, because I've had to wear so many of those. I can understand a bit of that. But I have an alarm on my phone when to put it on and take it off. Good. So that's why I have an alternative specific tape for that sort of thing. Most of you will likely know what I mean. And it feels so much better when I have it. I can breathe so much better. Air is your best friend. I will, for the purpose of training, if at all possible, I would recommend minimal on the binding side of things, just because you need to have the full ability to inhale and exhale. And you're going to be constricted enough in your movements and tension. Air is good. I can send you some Tai Chi vids later. And some person, I suggest training on a large moving disc with spikes. Well, that is the only way you'll be able to stop Ming the Merciless. You need to train how you're going to fight. So yes, if you expect to be in Kirk Fu, Flash Gordon style, dramatic, heroic battles, then yes, get accustomed. Perhaps use a giant merry-go-round or carousel if no one is paying attention. That is a joke, YouTube. I am joking. It is called humor. Hey, some person, hope you're doing well. Look up Tai Chi with Ping. Just search Tai Chi. Dr. Yang Jwing-Ming has some fundamentally exquisite Tai Chi and Chinese sword videos. If you want to learn as a solo practitioner, either of those sets of skills, I really, really recommend his videos. Our old library used to have some. I do believe if you were to speak to the current director, you might have a good shot at getting something similar added to the collection at Benton County. I can't promise that, but there's a good chance. And Thesis is sharing the link, I assume, for Tai Chi with Ping. There's several videos, and they're much better than the kind of annoying ones I had to deal with on VCD. Pardon me. But learning any of those systems will gladly make will make what you're doing easier, as long as you can watch yourself, the mirror being very crucial. And I know that can be difficult for you if you have body view issues. Oh, yes. Helen Liang's simplified 24 Yang style is beautiful. And please remember, though she's not in the chat, Cindy Kep is doing competition level Tai Chi. So it would seem to me that if you're looking for advice for home training, she might be the best person to reach out to, because that is her specialty, her bailiwick. And, that's one great thing in this community. You want to reach out and sample as many resources as possible to find what resonates with you. I don't want you guys taking my word for it on most things. I want you to do your own research. Understand, I will always err on the side of caution. I am a very cautious sword master. Part of that is because I've endured such injury doing what I do over the years, that I want you guys to learn learn about the fire from the times I've been burned. Now, while we're talking to you, my dear students, near and abroad, I mentioned this stuff. It gets packed with, it has that very soft consistency, closed cell foam. Anytime you find some of this stuff, especially if it's about this thickness, you want to put it aside. Because if you're going to do any armoring, this makes a great underlayer for basic armoring if you're making your own. And being ex-SCA, I am still very prone to suggesting making your own gear. I was going to talk a lot more about that, but we are fast reaching the end of my hour. And I'm going to have to eat a little bit extra because I've done so much today. So I have to be careful with this. But these are things you watch for. You watch for HDPE, clean barrels for making your own armor. There are, of course, resources to buy armor and pre-made jackets and things. Purple Heart Armory has some gorgeous armor jackets you can get, but you want your armor to match your weapon style. And then, as much as possible when you're learning, you want to fight in armor so that you understand armor, no matter how good, will always bind up a little. It will catch. It will protect. And I want you guys to understand something else before I leave this topic. We do not wear armor to weather more aggressive fighting. We wear armor so we don't get hurt. I teach that if you feel the contact, it is good. If you hear the contact, we're going to call it good. The kind of people I train will say, no, that didn't hit right or whatever, when there's a case for that. But I want you operating like every hit is a hit. And the reason is that I don't want you developing habits of doing things like blocking with a gauntleted fist to stop a shot, because you'll do that barehanded if somebody throws a stick at you. I want you to always work as though you are not armored. You are just in street clothes. But you want to be protected enough that you aren't hurt in these exchanges. And that is the great trade-off. It is a little different than simply trying to mimic the armor and techniques of a specific historical period. That isn't quite what I'm about. I want to keep the modern practicality in there too. I don't know if that makes sense, but it's about keeping you safe while you're fighting and keeping the training scars to a minimum, so that you won't hurt yourself if you ever have to defend yourself and your body is going on autopilot doing whatever it's doing. Not too long ago, I was dealing with someone who was throwing some punches at me, and my punch blocks are still shield work, guys. So it was this number, tap, 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 just like I had a shield there. I took all the hits to the outside of my arm. No bruising to speak of. It hurt. It was unpleasant. But, I was able to keep my softer materials good, keep myself covered and protected at all times. If I had used techniques like I was punching with the shield or something, I might have done something more aggressive and caused harm where harm wouldn't have been appropriate. Okay? A lot of my background comes from therapeutic defense, which is a very different, very strange niche. And I understand that. And I am totally okay with you guys training beyond and more practical, harder core styles. But I can't because I live with a behavioral autistic teenager. He has meltdowns. He gets what we would call behavioral. I'm not going to respond to my son having an autistic meltdown with the kind of strikes and maneuvers I would use against an armed assailant coming after me. But if I do not control my reflexes, I easily could. So at the risk of potentially having training scars in a more dangerous thing where I'd be less likely to harm someone, but if I can defend myself, it would be a bit better legal defense to say I was using minimum force, redirecting, etc. That way, if I have to escalate beyond that, I've gone through all the steps of, trying to physically remove myself, verbally trying to intercede, minimal physical redirection, bam, 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 bam. That way, if I ever have to escalate beyond that to very, very uncomfortable cases, I have the means to. I also have the wherewithal to understand that there are moments where you go from 0 to 100 because that's the only way you're going to survive. That all comes with training and self-knowledge. So you need to get to know yourself. And hi, Johnny, his softer materials. Hey, Johnny, everybody's greeting Johnny, who's incredibly awesome. Love hearing from you, John. Johnny's just great. And, still a legendary vampire. But when we talk about gear, you can make yourself and should make yourself. The list that hits first and foremost is a gorget, which is a neck protector. I prefer to go off of the designs for fencing with the rigidity of heavy fighting. So, yo, but you were in Brazil, not the Philippines. So you want to cover your top 7 vertebrae. You want to make sure your neck is covered. Optimally, you want the sides of your neck to be fairly well covered because you do not want to receive a strike to either of the major arteries, because a perfectly placed strike to the arteries can cause immediate unconsciousness, even very brief. There's some nerve clusters right in this region that can cause immediate unconsciousness. Just, you're out. You won't be out long, but out for even a second or two is a huge amount of time in a combative situation. And someone is going after the green-haired lady now, Nick. The one Mitsu totally saved. I am not remembering that reference, but you'll have to remind me at some point. VPM does great things. Yes, world traveling. I'm all about it. 1 second, please. My nose is running. We've been doing a lot of cleaning. So, we will talk about how gear advances for the student probably next week, if you guys remember, and someone reminds me and my note doesn't leave. But we've covered some really great topics today. I got to give a brief quasi review on an issue I'm having with the sword. Then you should catch it. Other than that, nice. Yes, I know. My refrigerator's running too. But I think we've come to a point where we got some really good discussion on how to build the basis and how to adapt some of our gear towards what we need. If these are points of interest, if there are things you want to see demonstrated, if there are things you want more in depth, please hit me in the comments, hit me directly, comment, call, whatever, however you can get a hold of me, and I'll be happy to expand that because I'm here to serve this community. Now, I can feel my voice starting to go. So what we're going to do is we're going to call it here. Thank you for a lovely evening. I hope it was helpful to you all. Please support my Patreon and buy my books on Amazon.com/author/Nicholas Tuckert. That's me. It should get you there. With that, guys, keep your guard up. Keep your eyes open. Be kind to yourself and each other. And as always, thank you for supporting your local swordmaster. I will see you next week for another episode of the Historical Fencing Guild live stream. And at some point, there will be a whole bunch of pre-recorded things going up. But I need to hydrate. I'm almost out of water. Thanks for the comment, Foxy. I love you guys, and you should too. Toodles.